Hello everyone, this is Wylam here. In today's Fuji Friday, I want to talk about features that I want to see in the X-H2. I know I just did a video saying that the X-H2 will most likely not be out until 2020, but this gives us a perfect opportunity to talk about features that we would want on the X-H2 because I have high hopes for the X-H2. I think it's going to be a terrific camera that's going to solve a lot of people's needs, both on the photography side and also on the videography side. So this is something that I really want to do because hopefully we can get some really good ideas out there, and then hopefully Fujifilms would listen and incorporate some of those ideas. So I have a list right here. I'm going to go through them and then we'll see which ones actually pan out. If you have ideas, I definitely want to listen to them and hear them because everybody has good ideas and it's awesome listening to other people's ideas within the community. So the first feature that I really want, and this is kind of my moonshot feature, something that I really want, but it has a very low chance of actually getting put into a mirrorless camera, and that is to have an electronic variable ND filter built into it, much like the Sony FS5 and FS7. I know those are cinema cameras, but this is a feature that I would love to see in there, and I'll explain very briefly on why I want that feature. Right now, when you get a mirrorless camera, it's pretty hard not to take a good picture. If you set this thing on full auto, it's going to do an incredible job of getting you a picture, and if you shoot in RAW, you can definitely bring back any details that you actually missed. So as a picture taking camera, these cameras right now are just terrific. Even if you know nothing about photography, you set it on full auto, it will take care of you. Now on the video side, that's partially true. If you actually use this camera in full auto or the X-T3 in full auto in indoor environments, it actually does a very good job. That's because most of the time the lighting is very controlled, and even in dark rooms, it's going to do a very good job of actually providing good video for you. You might see some grain, but the Fujifilm cameras are really good at making the grain look very natural. Now, when we move outdoors, it's an entirely different story because there's so much sunlight out there. The shutter speeds get really out of control very quickly, and we usually need an ND filter to kind of bring those back down to make the motion look very natural. One of the things that most people, when they first get their cameras and they're doing video, especially if they're doing it outdoors, is that they don't really understand that concept. And without having internal variable ND, what happens is that they will film something outdoors and it's going to look terrible. It's just because they don't really know or understand how video works. It's much more complex because you're just not taking a still image. You just can't crank up the shutters to, 1/5000 or 1/4000 and still take a great image. And that's one of the things that in the video market, we're really not very good at, is that we're not very good at introducing people to video, especially in outdoor environments, because it can be very challenging if you don't understand variable NDs or just ND filters in general. So having a variable ND, especially an electronic one, which it can control systematically, having that built internally into the camera would solve that problem, and it would make videography very accessible to anybody, especially people who don't really want to know the nitty-gritty of how all of this stuff works. So that's kind of my moonshot idea. It's something that I would love to see incorporated into the cameras, and even with people that actually know how to use variable ND, it would just simplify our lives because having it built internal to the camera body, it means we don't have to have a whole bunch of ND filters for each filter thread that we have for our cameras, and then we don't have to worry about step down rings if we want to use it that way because they are pretty annoying to use in general. So that takes care of my moonshot feature that I would love to see. The next feature that I would love to see is a bigger battery for the X-H2. Fujifilm definitely wants to portray this as the professional camera, so it really deserves a big boy battery. It deserves a battery that can actually last the entire day. Now, if they do want to stick with a smaller battery, then the battery grip itself should have a bigger battery, should have a big beefy batteries. That's what some of the Nikon cameras does, and it does a very good job. But I seriously would prefer just a larger battery in general, just for the X-H line, just because it's a larger body anyways, and we would really appreciate a battery that can just shoot longer in general. So that is something that I hope comes in the X-H line. The X-H line is the perfect chance to introduce a bigger battery system system into the X series of camera bodies. The next feature that I want to talk about is actually the back screen, and most vloggers will know exactly what I'm talking about here, is that we would love to have a selfie screen. Now, I know photographers don't like the selfie screen, and what I would want to say here is I would want to compromise. I think the screen that is built in right now is perfectly fine for photographers, and it should stay that way. That's perfectly fine. What I would like to see happen is to have this redesigned to where this can be removed and a selfie screen can be installed in its place. Whether we can do it as users or we have to send it into Fujifilms to be installed, I don't really care. I don't care if it's actually costs more to upgrade. I just want the capability of being able to change this to a selfie screen for people that really need it. I know the video market is still very small for this type of camera systems. I think one of the managers says is that about 20% of their user base is going to be for videographers, and that's not the majority. So having a selfie screen is probably not on the top of their list. But what I would like to see is Fujifilms giving us the capability of changing this to a selfie screen. I think that's something that should be across all camera lines at this point. I know that selfie screens are very important to a specific group of people, so please help us out and just make this modular in which we can upgrade to it, or we can send it into a service center and they can upgrade to it. That's what I would love to see right now. The next feature that I would love to see an improvement on is how we actually store our media. Right now, the SD cards work perfectly fine, and I love using SD cards because they're pretty much the standard, but I really don't want to move to XQD or compact flash because they're just niche media. What I'd rather see is us moving over to SSDs or the newer M2 cards because they are industry standards over in the PC market, and they're cheap and they're very reliable. You can, for $250, get a terabyte SSD that is super fast, that can keep up with any of the XQD or compact flash cards, and they're getting smaller each time I actually look at them. So we should take advantage of USB-C and then output to SSD. What my suggestion would be is that on the battery grip, instead of having just batteries, we could actually plug in like a strip SSD into the battery grip, just make it a little bit taller to accommodate the SSD to go in there. That way the battery grip does more than just provide extra power. Can the camera manufacturers admit that the battery grip is a complete ripoff because it basically doesn't do anything? It's kind of a dummy thing that just holds extra battery power. At least provide functionality that actually gives us better capabilities, like providing SSDs or the faster M2 ones, which nowadays they, I think, run at around like 1500 megabytes read and write, which is insane. Basically, it should never buffer if we implement that type of technology. That's something that I would love to see. Also, the port down here, the old port, that should be replaced with a USB-C so that we can get fast data transfers, we can provide power, and it's just a more modern input. So what I'm really hoping for is that they can continue on using SD cards, because I do love SD cards, but they should start implementing SSD technology into their cameras, because I think that is the future. It's not XQD cards, it's not compact flash. They're too much of a niche market and they can go away at any time. And plus, they're just so much more expensive. Remember, $250 for a terabyte of storage, that could be up to 1500 megabytes a second. That's what I'm talking about. We should not see buffering in 2019 and beyond, because cameras at this point should be able to write to media that can actually keep up with the output of the camera sensor. Alright, the last one I want to talk about before ending this video, because I don't want it to be too long, is that we already have Bluetooth technology in all of these X cameras. What I would really like to see is to have audio capabilities for our Bluetooth. It's already in here. It's probably pretty close already. So can we just have Bluetooth audio in and out? So input and output. That would be great for, vlogging videographers that wants to just use Bluetooth microphones for easy vlogging, or we can actually use it for more professional setups if you actually have really good Bluetooth connectivity. That's something that I would love to see, and I feel like it shouldn't be all that difficult because it's already in here. The Bluetooth technology is kind of already a staple for most high-end cameras, so let's go ahead and just extend that technology to audio. That would be fantastic. So that was a quick rundown of some of the features that I would love to see in the X-H2. I would love to see the community's opinions on what you would like to see implemented into the X-H2. I kind of went for the ones that aren't really thought of the most. I would love to see the community's opinions on what you would love to see in the X-H2. Please let me know. I love reading these comments. But that's all I have for this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.